Some early European writers held the view in their books that Africa had no history. This view was wrong. It was totally wrong. Africa is a continent exceedingly rich in history. Like other continents of the world, Africa has been in existence since creation. It is a continent with people. Where there are people, there must be history. Africa is a continent with vast mineral resources. It is a continent with history, a history to be told from one generation to another. In this edition of Africa in History, we present to you a history of the continent of Africa. There are 7 continents in the world, namely Asia, Africa, Antarctica, Europe, South America, North America, and Oceania. Of these 7, Asia is the biggest continent with a population of 4,800,898,000 people. The second largest is Africa, with a population of 1,515,140,850 people as at 2025. Africa is made up of a total of 54 countries duly recognized by the United Nations as independent or sovereign states. There are a few entities, however, in Africa that have existed as independent states for many years but yet to be recognized by the United Nations in the League of Independent States in Africa. Africa is home to over 2,000 languages and cultures, spanning through the prehistoric to contemporary times. Africa is divided into 5 regions, namely North Africa, comprising Algeria, Egypt, Mauritania, Morocco, Tunisia, and Libya. The inhabitants of these countries have a distinctive skin color, which is typically light skin, or what you may call fair complexion. There is also the West African region, made up of Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Liberia, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Togo. There is also the Central African region, made up of Burundi, Cameroon, Gabon, Democratic Republic of Congo, Congo Republic, Central African Republic, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, Sao Tome, and Principe. There is also the East African region, which is made up of the Comoros, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Madagascar, Mauritius, Rwanda, Seychelles, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, Tanzania, and Uganda. Lastly, there is the Southern African region, which is made up of Angola, Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. The continent of Africa is surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea to the north, the Arabian Plate and the Gulf of Aqaba to the northeast, the Indian Ocean to the southeast, and the Atlantic Ocean to the west. Algeria is the largest country in Africa by area, but Nigeria is the largest by population. The history of Africa is a long one, spanning prehistoric times through to the period of ancient civilization, down to the era of penetration of the hinterlands of Africa by Portuguese traders and later by several European traders and explorers, down to the era of colonial rule, down to the era of independence, the post-independence era, down to the contemporary times. In prehistoric Africa, life was in its most natural and rudimentary form. Most of the early Africans were hunter-gatherers. They also engaged in subsistence agriculture. They lived in caves, and later they developed the concept of building houses made of dry leaves and mud, also known as thatched houses. They lived in clusters, and life was largely communal. When anyone took ill, such person was treated with the use of herbs taken from the nearby bushes. There were no hospitals, but many Africans lived for as many years as possible. Africa is recorded as being the oldest inhabited territory on Earth. This is because the human species, the Homo sapien, is said to have originated from Africa. During the mid-20th century, anthropologists discovered many fossils and evidence of human occupation of the continent of Africa dating back to as much as 7 million years ago. Fossil remains of early ape-like humans have also been discovered to have lived in the African continent. In essence, Africa is widely considered as the cradle of humanity, with evidence of human occupation dating back to millions of years. With the passage of time, Africa metamorphosed from the prehistoric stage to the era of self-discovery. Ancient civilizations among the Egyptians, the Nubians, and Kushites flourished in North and East Africa, leaving behind remarkable achievements in architecture, basic sciences, education, arts, and governance. Other parts of the continent also witnessed civilization. There was the Nok culture, which was an ancient Iron Age civilization in what is now Nigeria. The Benin people of Nigeria also specialized in wood carving, which were used in the beautification of homes and places of traditional worship and for exports. Africa's development expanded further, leading to the era of trade by barter and the movement of goods and services across nations. During this period, the Sahara Deserts played a crucial role in connecting North and West Africa through the Trans-Sahara trade, facilitating the exchange of goods such as gold, salt, and other commodities. From the 7th to 8th centuries, various kingdoms and empires emerged in West Africa, including Ghana, Mali, and the Songhai Empire. These kingdoms were known for their wealth and cultural influence on the continent of Africa. Africa had taken care of its affairs in many ways and for many years. They had governance structures in place. They had chiefs who were like governors. These chiefs wielded executive and judicial powers and also made laws and regulations for the people they governed. They held societies together and instilled discipline among people. Life was simple and easygoing. There was love for one another, and the spirit of brotherhood, or the Ubuntu spirit, permeated the soul of the African man. Then came the period of trade between African nation-states and European traders, mostly along the coastal lines. This was a defining moment in the history of Africa. Commodities were exchanged on both ends. While the African merchants exchanged goods such as gold, iron ore, and other commodities, the European traders parted with salt, trinkets, den guns, clothes, and tobacco. It was simply trade by barter, and it flourished for many years. This relationship with the outside world later graduated to the introduction of slave trade. Africans were captured, mostly by fellow Africans, and sold into slavery to the European traders. Those sold were forced into waiting ships and transported by sea to the New World in the Americas and to many parts of Europe, where they were deployed to agricultural plantations and later deployed to industrial camps during the Industrial Revolution of the 16th century. The period of slave trade represents one of the darkest moments in the history of Africa. European superpowers later began a bold incursion into Africa for the purpose of imposition of colonial rule. The map of Africa was placed on the wall in a conference held in Berlin, Germany, and the European superpowers in attendance embarked on the partitioning of Africa to themselves. Foreign rule and dominance was imposed in these entities, and the natural resources were exploited non-stop. The European powers did not, however, have their way in all places without resistance. Some African entities resisted colonial rule till they were overpowered at huge cost on both sides. Resistance to colonial rule took various forms, from armed rebellions to political activism. One of the most coordinated African resistances to colonial rule was the Mau Mau Rebellion that took place in Kenya. Africa was colonized by Europe for more than 100 years before the grant of independence to the countries in Africa. In the 20th century, Africa witnessed the rise of independence movements across the continent, resulting in the decolonization of most of the continent. At this time, several sons and daughters of Africa had gained quality education and enlightenment at home and abroad, leading to the demystification of European powers and colonial authority over African states. The attainment of independence also came with its own peculiar challenges. Post-colonial Africa faced numerous challenges, ranging from mismanagement of resources to political instability, resulting in the takeover of power by the military. Most countries have had their fair share of political, social, and economic instability. Some countries in Africa have also fought bitter civil wars that have left indelible marks and scars on the psyche of such countries. Most of the countries today are, however, governed by democratically elected leaders following the repeated condemnation of military rule and dictatorship across the broad spectrum. It is hoped that the leaders of Africa will harness the resources of their respective countries, both mineral resources and human resources, and make effective use of them for the betterment of the fortunes of the continent, so as to place the continent in a position where it can compete favorably with other continents of the world. Many thanks for watching this edition of Africa in History, and do remember to click the subscription button to be a part of this community.